Hi, I'm Ellen and welcome to Mentally Detoured. This episode is the last of the history episodes, part 3. I've already covered thousands of years and there's only 120 or so to go. Hang on, here come the highlights of the late 1800s until now. Though not especially a highlight, asylums still existed. They were now known, though, as hospitals or institutions. Treatment of the insane was still deplorable, though advances were being made on several fronts. In the late 1880s, Austrian neurologist and psychiatrist Sigmund Freud developed his psychoanalytic theory, and the treatment he developed, psychoanalysis, was based entirely on a talking cure. His psychoanalysis remained popular until the mid-1900s. Alongside Freud's talk therapy, other researchers believed that mental illness could be compared to physical illness, and treatments were designed to correct chemical imbalances in the brain. These included electroconvulsive therapy, known as ECT, lobotomies, and psychopharmacology. While both electroconvulsive therapy and lobotomies had their beginnings in the late 1930s, drugs, especially sedatives, had long been in use. Sedatives were, unfortunately, not effective in treating some of the actual symptoms. So let's start with lobotomies. A lobotomy is the severing of the nerves of the brain's frontal lobe from the emotion-controlling centers of the inner brain. The United States performed more lobotomies than any other country. Sources vary on the exact number, but it's between 40,000 and 50,000, the majority taking place between the late 40s and the early 50s. They have been banned in most Western countries since the 1950s and 1960s. Electroconvulsive therapy, on the other hand, is still being used today, though greatly modified. In the 1940s and 50s, its use was widespread. During the 60s and 70s, the use of ECT declined dramatically, and one significant factor was the 1962 novel One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey, which was then adapted into a movie in 1975 starring Jack Nicholson. This type of therapy will be explained in greater detail in a future video. So this brings us to psychopharmacology. You may also hear these drugs referred to as psychotropic, psychoactive, or simply psychiatric medications. In 1949, an Australian psychiatrist introduced the use of lithium to treat mental illness, and we were off to the races. Advances in antipsychotics, antidepressants, and other such medications may have been the most significant discoveries in the way to treat mental illnesses. Look for future videos about these drugs and medications as well. Unfortunately, the downside to this belief that medications were the answer to everything and all that was needed to effectively manage and treat mental illnesses led to a movement to deinstitutionalize beginning in the 1960s. This closing of mental institutions and hospitals continues today with the belief that the mentally ill can be better cared for in their own community with their own community services. However, a lack of services being developed has now led to more homelessness and a re-institutionalization of the mentally ill in jails and prisons. The last development in the 20th century that I want to mention was the publication in 1952 of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders by the American Psychiatric Association. Better known as the DSM, this manual standardized psychiatric diagnostic categories and criteria. Having been revised over the years, in 2013, DSM-5 became the manual currently in use. Having this diagnostic tool, however, does not mean that diagnosing a mental illness is an easy thing to do, and that will certainly be discussed in future episodes. So where does that leave us today? It is widely believed that in the United States, the mental health care system is in dire need of repair. I have no doubt that we can do better. Let's talk about it. Until next time.